Do you want to create the reality of your dreams? Do you want to be bursting with cash, with money falling from the ceiling? Uh, do you want a red Ferrari?
Well, then just watch this video and all of your dreams will come true. Was testing a bit of an unhinged intro there, but see, there was a bee. A bee almost attacked me. Um, no, but seriously, I'm gonna drop some hot sauce on you in this video. Retake. No, but seriously, I'm gonna drop some knowledge on you in this video, and it's some pretty deep stuff that took me a really long time to understand. So watch until the end if you want to, get all that incredible stuff I talked about in the intro. All right, so first let's talk about something that's really underrated when it comes to creating your desired reality. Your mind or your ego, it does not have your best interest at heart. It is not, trying to get you to become the most successful version of yourself or to step in the person that you know you're capable of being. The only thing that your thoughts and your brain cares about is survival. It cares about keeping things status quo and the same. And so maybe you've noticed that when you start to really step out of the status quo that you've been in, when you start to shift your identity and step into a new version of yourself, there's this little kind of devil on your shoulder that's constantly trying to pull you back to your old version of self. And that's because the brain hates change. It hates to change because back in the day, change meant potential death. If you got, lost from the tribe, if you changed where you had a consistent food source, if people came over and took over your village, any form of breaking the status quo could mean not surviving. And so what a lot of us take to be who we are, which is our thinking, our thoughts are actually working against us. You're saying, I really want this for my life. I really want to break free and become the person I know I'm capable of being. And your thoughts are saying, yeah, but what about that chocolate cake? How about drinking on the weekend with my friends? And if that's what you've been doing, if that's the pattern that you've been in, then your mind is going to fight to keep that pattern the same. It doesn't want to change the status quo. It's the same thing with the types of thoughts you've been thinking. If you've been, inherently kind of a negative person, or if you've had certain thought loops going on over and over again, then those neural pathways are heavily ingrained into your mind. And the brain will fight to keep things status quo. And what I mean by this is it'll throw up stories and narratives to keep you in the same place that you are now. So let's just take, for example, that you're trying to quit a bad habit. Like you're trying to quit smoking or you're trying to quit eating sugar. And when you stop, the brain is like, oh no, I don't want to stop doing this. This is what we've been doing. This is giving me dopamine and we really want to continue. And so you, as the conscious awareness, know that this bad habit is actually slowly ruining your life. And yet what your mind is going to do, your thoughts, is going to create an extremely compelling story to continue. And it is going to use logic to convince you to continue in the bad habit. And so it'll say, just one more day, or it'll say, you've had a really hard week, just one time, one more day won't hurt. So this mind comes up and it starts making up stories and narratives that are extremely compelling to try to keep you trapped in your old way of being. And this is the same thing for your thoughts that you're trying to break free of. When you start to think more positive-based thoughts or shift into a new identity, that old part of yourself really gets loud and your mind starts convincing you of why you're wrong. Actually, this positivity you're trying to penetrate me with, this is not true. Actually, if you really looked at it, this negativity that you've been believing up until this point is a lot more accurate. And so that's really the problem when you get lured into and hypnotized by this mind, is that it does not understand context, and it does not want what you want. It has completely different values and goals than you have. And that's why this deep understanding is so important, that you are not your mind. You are the conscious observer of your mind. And your mind is just kind of like a biological computer that has actually nothing to do with you. It is spouting out whatever it's been programmed with, basically. If I was, when I was a little kid, if I went to score the game-winning soccer goal and I brutally missed, and then everyone said, "David, you suck," then I might take that as a belief in my head of, I'm not the guy who pulls through. I'm not the guy who makes the game-winning successful shot. And as I grow up, I slowly reinforce this belief more and more in my head until it becomes just this automatic, under the surface pattern and story that I tell about myself and my life. But this thought, this story or narrative, has literally nothing to do with me. It could have been possible that I made the soccer shot and had a completely different narrative and story. The point is that your mind and the thoughts you think on a daily basis have been programmed against your will throughout your life. And a lot of them are also thoughts that are based on an old brain. They're based on a brain that was designed for survival way, way, way back in the day. And so your thoughts and mind, it's not interested in, getting your dream life or turning into the person you're capable of becoming. It literally does not care about that. And so this is why I can feel like there's like confliction inside of you. Like there's two separate people fighting for two completely different things and realities. It's because you have you as your conscious aware self who sees context and who wants the best for their life, who wants to fulfill your purpose. And then there is the ego, the little mind, the little me, who's constantly trying to steer you off course, back into, survival, back into comfort, back into instant gratification. And so when you really start to discover yourself as this open space of awareness, and you ask yourself the question, like, who am I really? And who does this mind arise to? When you start to get in touch with the fact that you are this space of awareness, you start to become one whole person. You become one being in which a mind or evolutionary program is arising. And from this standpoint, you can see this old programming and this old kind of character or avatar that you've built throughout your life. You can more clearly see the narratives and stories that you're constantly telling yourself. And this is really hard in the beginning because these narratives and stories about yourself that you tell yourself, they have just become so automatic, so ingrained, and so blindly believed in that they just happen so below the conscious awareness. They're actually so close to you and so natural for you to have that you don't even question them most of the time. So even when you have this understanding and you start to, step outside and begin to observe this mind, the thoughts are still going to come up, and especially really, really ingrained patterns are just going to pull your attention right in. But over time, the gaps between, you getting pulled into the mind and starting to follow it around, and the times that you're just resting as you are and being this open space in which the mind's allowed to exist, the gaps get longer and longer. And you become less and less influenced by this fearful-based mind that does not have your best interest at heart. Anyway, I hope this helped.